As strange and as unbelievable as it might sound, there actually was a time in NBA history where a player was traded for an entire franchise. So we're gonna get into that after giving a shout out to the sponsor of this video, SeatGeek. You know the deal, it's the best place on the internet or anywhere to get tickets to sport events, concerts, Broadway shows, and much more. They're the best because they aggregate tickets from all over the web to make buying simple and to find you the best deal. But not only that, they score each deal to let you know how good it is. Green's good and red's bad. But SeatGeek even shows you a view from your seat inside the arena. So go check it out by using the link in the description and then use my code SWEAT with 2 T's for $20 off your first order. Now back into the video. The guy at hand that was traded for an NBA franchise was none other than Dr. J Julius Erving. It's a known fact that he was always one of the best players in the world in his playing career, and that he went from playing with the New York Nets in the ABA one season to the Philadelphia 76ers in the NBA the next. The transition probably wasn't as simple as you're thinking. So let's take a look, and to do that we gotta head back to the 70s when the ABA was merging with the NBA. So the ABA started back in 1967 in an effort to compete with the NBA. They tried to take them down by offering a flashier style of play and changing the rules around to let that happen. But that wasn't enough, because by 1976, all but 4 of their original 11 teams had folded, and the rest were forced to merge with the NBA, creating the ABA-NBA merger. The 4 that joined the NBA in 1976 were the San Antonio Spurs, the Indiana Pacers, the Denver Nuggets, and the New York Nets. The NBA treated the additions as an expansion instead of a merger, so that meant that each team had to pay a $3.2 million expansion fee, and they would get no television money for the first 3 seasons with the league. And that was a big deal, because keep in mind, basketball wasn't nearly as big as it is today, and teams didn't just have tens of millions of dollars lying around. Also keep in mind that we're talking about the ABA that wasn't nearly as big or as popular as the NBA was back then. So we're talking about a good amount of money that it costed these teams. The Spurs, Pacers, and the Nuggets managed to pay the fees and survive, but it was a different story for the Nets, because the NBA already had the New York Knicks, so on top of that $3.2 million, the Nets were going to have to pay a $4.8 million fee to the Knicks as compensation for invading their area. So the Nets were struggling at the time, and they didn't know where or how they were going to find that money. And this is where Dr. J comes in. In the previous 3 years, the Nets won 2 ABA championships with Dr. J, who had averaged about 28-10 for those 3 years. But that didn't stop Roy Bowe, the owner of the New York Nets, from offering the Knicks Julius Erving if they would do away with the $4.8 million fee. But the Knicks declined, making this what's been known as one of the worst decisions in franchise history. So instead, Roy told the Lakers, Bucks, and the 76ers that they could talk with Erving. And eventually, he was traded to Philly for $3 million, which the Nets used to pay for their spot in the league. Technically meaning that Dr. J was traded for the Nets spot in the NBA. And as we all know, the Nets would go on to struggle with just being a mediocre team for the next 20 years. Until 2002 when they made the NBA Finals. This was something that came to be known as the curse of Dr. J. A lot of people, especially Nets fans, blamed Roy for not keeping Julius. And you'd think he had no choice because of the money situation, but come to find out, it wasn't even about that. Because a year after they traded Dr. J, the New York Nets moved to New Jersey, and what cost them another $4 million to the Knicks for allowing them to move to another spot within their territory. Money they could have used to keep the doctor. But if you ask Roy Bowe himself, he says he stands by his decision to trade away Erving 100% because it wasn't just about the money back then, it was about his knees and their relationship. Roy said with his style of play, he never thought his knees would hold up for an entire NBA season, because he had already been struggling with tendonitis in his knees. And as for their relationship, right before being traded to Philly, Julius was in the middle of sitting out training camp because he felt he deserved a bigger contract. Roy said they weren't friends anymore at the time, but they were still friendly. So as you can see, it wasn't only the money, there was a lot more things behind it that played into the decision to letting Dr. J go. If you ask the Nets GM at the time, Bill Melchioni said that Roy always felt the franchise was more important than the player, and he could always just go out and buy another player. But he didn't realize just who he was letting go, and the effects it would have on the franchise. Bill said that when Julius was sitting out of training camp, they had dinner so many nights together trying to convince him to stay, and this was when Philly called asking if Dr. J was available. Bill said forget it. But 2 weeks later, when he saw that Dr. J was still unhappy and still sitting out training camp, he called Philly back and they were shocked that the Nets only wanted $3 million for him. So just like that, the deal was done. So as you can see, a lot more went into it than the Nets just giving him away for $3 million. But it did happen. The main losers here were the Knicks for turning down Dr. J and the Nets for not being able to keep him happy, costing them over 20 years of mediocrity. And of course, the winners here were Dr. J and the 76ers, who would go on to win a championship together in 1983. And that's it for this one. So if you enjoyed this video and learned something new, definitely comment down below and let me know. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next video.